Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Mr. Robert Hagan. Man, what's happening?
Dude, I love the cool temperatures. It's football season. Yes. It is nice to be back into it. Back into it with school, man. It has been a crazy couple days. Back to LC volleyball.
Yes.
What a weekend with volleyball.
Yeah, volleyball had two fantastic matches. We'll get to that in a second. As you said, school's getting started all over the place. I started my senior year yesterday. Chase had his freshman orientation today, and Addie starts in first grade tomorrow. So lots going on over here. I'm also exhausted and sore as all hell. For anybody that's been part of the show for a long time, knows that when we, 500 followers, we went 2-on-1 with Kai Fong over there, the legendary head coach for the LC tennis team. So I decided I was 1 credit short because one of my requirements changed from a 4-credit class to a 3-credit class. So I'm like, hey, I'll take a tennis class. Yeah. Kai is teaching this tennis class. It's going to be fantastic. Unfortunately, they combined the beginner and intermediate classes. I signed up for intermediate because I know how tennis works. They combined them together, and I think I was the only person that actually signed up for the intermediate because everyone else there, like most of them, didn't even know how like points worked and stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, there was one young lady who showed up. She just wanted to talk to Kai about possibly playing tennis and like clubs and stuff. She's not even part of the class. He's like, well, just join us today, and then if you like it, you could join the class, and they'll give you an excuse to play tennis. So Kai went, well, she played on the Sandpoint High School team last year. So we're going to take her and have her just play with Randy because Randy played for the Lewiston High School team over 20 years ago. And that's all I did for 40 minutes was get destroyed by somebody who just previously played for the Sandpoint High School team as a freshman at LC. He ran me all over that court, and I got to do it all again tomorrow. So I'm sore and tired. I'm still not recovered from it. It made me feel extremely old. That's just
so period. You're saying
I'm so old.
So you're saying you're getting close to the old of my old? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm getting close to racquetball old.
No, I've played racquetball, but it's 17 years. Starting my 17th year teaching, I just can't fathom that. It's crazy. 17 years being there, and it has been just crazy, and kids starting up with football and all that. But it's just unbelievable. But with that being said, it is one thing today. Happy anniversary to my wife. 25 years today.
Oh, you suck. No, congratulations. You two.
I have to bring it up, but we're doing the show tonight. I know she's been doing other things today and been busy recovering from her surgery and all that. But 25 years, I can't believe somebody's put up with me that long. I mean, you've put up with me now almost 3 years of the show. So I mean,
yeah, but it's 2 hours and I hit goodbye. Like I close the window and you just disappear. It's great. She wishes she could have my power. I'm sure she's tried to figure that out a few times.
Probably a few of those days she would like to think that.
We got another very busy and fantastic show for you. We're getting closer and closer to the beginning of the NFL season. We will now preview the AFC and NFC East divisions this week. The AFC here in the first hour, NFC in hour number 2. Of course, baseball is getting closer and closer to wrapping up the regular season. One of our teams is very much in the hunt. Mine is starting to bring up prospects because that's all we have left to do. We will get into that and a ton more. Of course, we're going to do some more NFL news. Our sports-related draft is on the biggest collapses in sports history. It was very interesting to keep it that broad because I think we went at it in 2 completely different ways several times. It's great. And we're coming up to the final regular season week of Aussie Rules football. And unfortunate to say, both of our teams have now been completely eliminated from finals competition. But there's some drama still building up in there. And Eric has warned us that when we get to that portion of the show, there may be some comments that we will not be able to post on the big board.
Yeah,
So keep an eye out for his comments. Not all of them may make the cut. I'll just say that.
As my team gets to play against Eric's team, the Western Bulldogs, I think the best Geelong can do is ninth and will fall right out, but they can play spoiler to Western. So
they could. We'll get to it. And the way that the schedule's built up could add for a lot of drama. We'll get into that late in the second hour. But before we get into our AFC East preview, we find Robert sad about last night. I forgot to ask you before we get into the local events that are going on. That is very important. What is it? 24 preseason games that you guys had won, and now that streak is over. All that the Ravens could hold on to, it's poof. It's gone.
It was preseason.
It was a preseason during your 24 game winning streak in the preseason. It wasn't.
It was preseason 20. And those guys played quite well, and it was great to see Eric Bieniemy keep the pedal down at the very end and go. I didn't get to watch a lot of it, but I mean, hats off to the Commanders. I think they're going to be a little bit better this year.
While we get into some local stuff real quick, I will once again pop up our trivia question. Don't forget, during the little 5-minute pre-show, we now have a trivia question for you if you want to get on a couple minutes early and try to answer it. Most people don't, but there it is for you. I'm very curious if you guys have some responses to that. I'll leave it up for just another minute. But while I leave that up, sir, you went to Conquest of the Cage last week. It was 6 days ago up there in Spokane, open air facility. You were awesome enough to get a couple of videos, and I've seen other people post videos as well. Looked like a really fun event. And once again, Austin Arnett's group they're not even being nice to people anymore. It's just, if you're facing somebody from Austin Arnett's camp, get ready to just get destroyed in a minute.
Yeah, 100%. First, we'll talk about Bryce Wyatt, and Wyatt is no longer in the martial arts campus. He has moved to Spokane, so he wrestles out of Spokane. But Bryce Wyatt, dad still lives here in the Valley and huge in the Valley, and we still talk to a big dominant first round ref stoppage, just beating the heck out of Kyle McGoy. And this is the second time I've seen Kyle McGoy, and he has been rocked both times. But hats off to Bryce. I think that is win number 4 or 5 professional for him now. Dimitri Morales come out in his first professional fight and just beat the heck out of Matt Main. There was really nothing that he could do. Just barely over a minute. So
explain to me, because I've watched your video and I've watched another video that was circulating Facebook. What happened with Matt? Because obviously Dimitri took him down and got on top of him, threw a couple of punches just to say I'm here, and then Matt tapped out, and that was it. Yeah. It was like, it didn't even look like Dimitri was hitting him that hard, but obviously something had to have happened between the takedown and them.
Yeah, it looked like a little bit of a cut had happened right about it in the middle of his eye at one point, and I think he got a little bit of that, and it just rung his bell. I mean, he just collapsed down into a hunch, and as I was trying to watch and going back and forth between the video and looking up at the board and looking at where they were at, because I was a little farther back in my seat, but it was just pure dominant. And the forces that Dimitri was hitting him with, he was letting everything go with every swing he was swinging, and it was unbelievable. And there was a video that's come out of him celebrating after that Dimitri is huge into, giving props to Frank Arnett, the late Frank Arnett, and great with that. I know April posted it, and he's calling out. He's like, "Look out! Here I come!" Because I'm going to make it my way that way. And also Rick Little, the gentleman that is promoting out of Spokane, he said the same thing. Look out for this kid. He is going to be good.
You know what Dimitri said on Wednesday?
UFC 135. What was it? 135 something. I don't remember.
That's his weight class. Is 135.
Yeah.
But yeah. Told him to acknowledge him.
Yeah,
for sure.
Look out, Dana. And the last one, it was Drake. And another one, Drake was able to roll his guy through. Sanchez got a first round choke out of it. Unbelievable match with Drake, and that one was even quicker than Dimitri's. So you said it. Arnett's group just dominated the entire night. It was unbelievable. But I think another one match that really hit was a fifth round or a fifth the fifth match of the thing, and that was a 15-year-old. That was Braxton Reyes of Spokane. He defeated a much older gentleman. I think he was close to 30. Nick is close to 30 in a first round choke, and he was 15 years old. And this dude just come out to fight.
Absolutely crazy. Kevin Nolet nailed your trivia question with Marcus Allen of USC. You had asked me that before, and I had no clue. Obviously, I had quarterback on the brain because that's all that wins NFL MVPs anymore. But Marcus Allen, yes, he won all of those. By the way, extra trivia question for you. Who is the last non-quarterback to win the NFL MVP? Because I had to look that up because I was curious.
Lawrence Taylor.
No. It's much sooner than that.
Oh, boy, howdy! I don't know offhand.
The last non-quarterback to win the NFL MVP, Lamar Jackson in 2019. The actual answer is Adrian Peterson in 2012. But
AP,
I had to hit that little dig. So we had Conquest of the Cage. We saw Dimitri Morales fight. We saw Drake Randall. Well, you saw these two fight. Dimitri and Drake. They're both already on the next Lewiston card, Clearwater Combat, November 4th. You're set to get tickets. They come out on Friday, right?
Right, Friday.
You're set to get tickets. I can't commit to it because we have senior night for volleyball, and I just feel like it's by the time we get the match done, it's like a 2-hour difference from the start of volleyball to the start of the MMA event. Our second match, which went 4 sets on Saturday, went a little over 2.5 hours. On top of then, I talked to the coach afterwards. And again, with it being senior night, there's going to be some extra stuff before I'm able to finally talk to her. So now you're looking at 3.5 hours. So I just can't. I would be upset if I got tickets and then had to miss at least half the show or something. So I can't quite commit to it. But the card is already looking awesome.
Unbelievable card. Pro weight Brian McElroy has taken on Sharon Spain, who actually fought at Conquest of the Cage against Josh Reddinghouse. So this guy is from Chicago, Illinois, and got beat by the Spokane boy Josh. So it's interesting that he so quickly picked up that fight right away against Brian. Brian was in the back as with the guys up there. So I'm wondering if there was some conversation had prior to fight that set this up a little bit. That's the only thing I can think of. So, and like you said, Dimitri is back on the card, taking on Brandon Sly in the bantamweight, and then Drake Randall going to take on Owen Robinette. So right there, those I think are probably the 3 best matches that are probably going to happen. And they'll be late matches, as they will all be pro bouts.
Yeah, we saw Owen Robinette in the last Clearwater Combat back in April, or was it March or April that took place? So we saw him as well. That's going to be a fantastic fight, and definitely, if you're in the area, again, tickets go on sale at noon on Friday. Go get your tickets, and that place is packed and just a ton of fun. Talked about volleyball. They started their season last weekend. They do go 1-1. There's so much change on this team. That's what I wrote in my preview that you can read on lcwarriors.com. It's what I kept talking about on the broadcast, also on lcwarriors.com, because we haven't quite got the radio stuff set up just yet. But there's more new players than returning players on this squad. I want to say it's 10 new players to 8 returning players, which is just absolutely insane. Also, Katie being the new head coach is another big change for the Warriors. They come out, win a straight set victory against Walla Walla, who's not your strongest opponent. They won 1 match last year, but they do take care of business pretty handily, in fact. And then they lose just a barn burner. What a fun match that was against Montana Western, another longtime rival of the Warriors. Montana Western was at in 4 sets, 22-25. And then they won the next 3 sets all by the score of 25-23. Every single match, or every single set, came right down to the end. Other than the third set, neither team was able to really pull away from the other. Set 3 was more of a streaky set. But I thought the young women on this team absolutely performed their hearts out, played extremely well. Some kinks to work out, as you would at the beginning of the season, but talking to Katie afterward, her first thing to me after that loss of Montana Western is like, that's what you want to see in your non-conference schedule, is a team that's going to push you to the limit and make you play your heart out. And they play each other again next week. It'll be a lot of fun to see how that one goes out. But you were there for PA. What did you see?
Yeah, the same thing. There was a big conversation with Noah. I got to work with Noah and Callie Stevens down on the table, and we were talking all throughout the 4-set match with Montana Western, and this was just like, these girls are good. They can play both ways. They're going to handle it. But you made it. You made the comment. They made a couple of unforced errors that I don't think some of the sites they were looking at getting it, going for kills and stuff, I don't think they were quite paying attention right at the net, and they had a couple of miscues just right at the net. So,
that front line too for Montana Western was amazing. Like Katie brought it up, they like all of their front line were between 6'2" and 6'4". Right.
Yeah,
it was tough for them to get through that front line for sure.
But I think the big thing you say,
I was gonna say some miscommunications. I think. That's just something they will work out.
That's what I was going to say. One big thing we talked about was that, the communication between new and older players, Kinsey Dean, her 5th year as a player there at LC, and having Anna Merrill.
Hey, we're a college radio show. We got to do a little bit of college stuff. We will get there in 3 minutes. Give us 3 minutes. 3-minute warning. You have your do I have that sound? Hold on. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because, there's a couple of plays with Anna Merrill and how they said it, even with Natani being the foreign girl coming from Brazil. There's a lot of talent on this team. I think it's just going to take maybe another couple of matchups of who makes how they communicate and make things happen.
That's not the song I thought that was. Never mind.
So
we got local stuff to talk about. You calm down. 2 hours later. We'll just wait. I was going to do the 3-minute warning song, but the one I popped up was completely different. Do you remember 3-minute warning from the WWE? Rosie and Jamal. One turned into Umaga. One turned into superhero in training whose initials were funny. You can work that out yourself.
Yeah.
But real quick, Juliana Forgash Aguilar, absolutely ridiculous. 35 kills and 6 aces over the weekend. And she was coming in and out of the match. She's dealing with the right leg injury. You saw her taped up on Saturday. The freshmen all performed extremely well, especially Gianna Anderson, who had 17 kills on the weekend. And congratulations to Kenzie Dean. You talked about her 5th-year senior. She now passes 1,300 career digs at LC. She's at 1,311. She's now 37 away from Heather McIntosh for 7th all-time. There's a good chance she can get past Katie Palmer for 2nd in Warrior history.
I have to look at that really quick because I might have a trivia question for you.
Okay, you figure that out. But 4 games this week, starting on Thursday against Ottawa of Arizona, then Friday against Montana Western and Arizona Christian, and then Saturday against MSU Northern. All 4 of those games down in Arizona. High school football real quick. Lewiston High School starts on Saturday. They will take on Woods Cross High School of Utah down at the Rocky Mountain Rumble. That starts at 4 p.m. on Saturday, though I think it's 3 p.m. for us because it's down in southern Idaho, so they're an hour ahead. So check your local listings for sure. I know the River will carry that. I'm sure Brian Danner is getting ready to head down there as we speak. Woods Cross has already played twice. They are 1-1 on the year. And then real quick, because this is the opening weekend for Idaho football, a couple of other games to pay attention to. Obviously, check out the Lewiston Tribune for all of your results. But Notice will take on Clearwater Valley. Rocky Mountain takes on Coeur d'Alene, and the Vikings just had a big upset victory in Southern Idaho last weekend. Council is at Kendrick, who we'll see if they could bounce back from their state championship loss. Moscow at Kellogg, Lake City at Lakeland, Timberline at Lapway, trying to revenge a 60-point loss from last year. Orfino at Marsing, Post Falls at Sandpoint, Deary at Troy, Salmon River at Lewis County, and Logos is at Lakeside.
So
Yeah,
here's your
question real quick.
Well, do you know when you typed in Kinsey Dean, she is passing Heather McIntosh for 7th all time. Do you know who Heather McIntosh is?
I have no idea.
That is Heather McIntosh Lang, as in Cash Lang's mom.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Admin of Clarkson.
She's about to be 8th all time.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some NFL. Let Robert Taylor calm down. It is time to talk about the AFC East. Last year, Buffalo came away with the division title, 13-3. Miami was 9-8, New England 8-9, and the New York Jets finished 7-10 after starting off pretty red hot and then completely imploded. And I'm just gonna call you out. Like the player to watch section of our previews is supposed to be someone that people aren't normally watching, and here you are picking this dude.
Yeah, and there's reasons. I want to see what happens. I'm taking Stephon Diggs, and just because of all the drama that has gone down between him and Josh Allen, we both agree. We both think that Buffalo is going to take a step back, and we think that's going to happen quite easily with that being said. But how things ended between the two of them and towards the end of the year, it makes you wonder how they're going to play together, and could he have a 1,000-yard season? That's a big question.
I think he will. He's definitely very, very good. He's one of the best receivers in the league, and yeah, there's a ton of question marks right now going on with Buffalo. We'll get to it when we do our predictions, but for me, the player to watch is Braxton Berrios, the former receiver for the New York Jets, now with the Miami Dolphins. And Berrios was somebody I loved to watch as a Jets fan because he was kind of that gadget wide receiver. He would go in motion a lot and try to find him space. He's very speedy, very elusive. Now you add him in there with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who can spread out the field, and then you can get him into space. Give Tua another option to dump down to. I really think Braxton Berrios could have a fantastic year for the Dolphins. I think those that think Miami, like Robert, they think Miami can win the division. I get it. It just really comes down to the health of Tua, because I think if he goes down, they're in trouble. Skylar Thompson's been looking good in the preseason, but it's the preseason, and you can't really rely on that. So, oh, and yeah, they got that Mike White dude, but I can tell you from experience that Mike White is good for one game, and then people get tape on him, and then he completely implodes. It happens every single time. So yeah, that's going to be the key for every team. You got to stay healthy, but Tua's health has always been a big question mark. It was a big reason why they only finished 9-8 last year, was because he missed a big portion of that year, and they could be a very, very good team. The AFC East, I think, is the toughest division to figure out, barring the NFC South that we talked about last week, just for the fact that you could tell me any order of those four teams, and I couldn't disagree. But there's so many question marks with this East that we will have answered as we go on, but we will get there. Let's get into it. Let's get into our individual team looks. First, for those division champion Buffalo Bills, they do add Damian Harris, get a couple offensive line help with Brandon Shell, Connor McGovern, get a defender in Leonard Floyd. What was that? Leonard Floyd. Lose a couple of pieces on the offensive side. Devin Singletary, Jamison Crowder. I'm not too worried about either of those. They get the big one, Dalton Kincaid. They're tied in the first round of the draft. A lot of people think he's going to be fantastic. Our buddy Harry Broadhurst hated this pick when it went down. But your thoughts on the Buffalo Bills?
My big concern is the health of and you talked about it. Health is a huge thing, but looking at how the depth of the running back situation is going to be, I think that's the biggest thing. Is and listening to them try to do things with Josh Allen to take where he's not scrambling and running the ball so much. I think that's the big thing. I'm looking forward to see what Knox and Kincaid can do. Because Allen does like to drop it off, little dump passes every once in a while. How are these two going to work together, and what can they do and help out with the receiving core?
Yeah, all right, I can forget that. To me, it comes down to James Cook, their young running back. They need a running game. They cannot just rely on Josh Allen for that running game. I think if they can be a bit more balanced offensively, they can stay up at the top longer than we really expect. I've said all offseason that I feel like the Buffalo Bills are like the Tennessee Titans, where they were the second best team in this conference for several years. They just could not get over the hump. And now the window's starting to shut. It's Tennessee was able to hold it a bit longer because their division was so bad. But for Buffalo, can they keep it open a little bit longer? Or with the Dolphins and Jets improving, is their window a bit smaller than what Tennessee went through?
Yeah, and that's the big thing you talked about. Whether you're all with James Cook, it's how you keep these running backs balanced in how they can produce. And I think if you rely on James Cook too much, it might become a little rough for this ball club. But they do sign Latavius Murray. He's got Damian Harris back there, so it'll be interesting to see. It's not the most depth-worthy running back team in the league, but they should be able to run the ball a little bit better behind Morris and Spencer Brown and run it off to the right side.
All right, so the Buffalo Bills will win the AFC East if.
For me, it's got to be the defense has got to be competitive. I mean, you've got Von Miller there, so they have to stay in there. They've got to hold other team offenses in check and don't allow big chunks of points. So, Von Miller, Micah Hyde, those guys have really got to step up.
Now, for me, the Bills win the East if I am wrong about them taking a big step back, and both the Jets and Dolphins fail to take that big leap that I think you and I both partially expect. Let's get to the Miami Dolphins. Again, they get Braxton Berrios from the Jets. They get Robbie Anderson from the Panthers from the Jets. So everyone's joking about the Jets being Green Bay East. I guess the Miami Dolphins are the Jets South. Is that the same comparison? They also get Jalen Ramsey. I don't know. It's just two wide receivers that did not work out that great for the Jets because the offense wasn't that good. They do lose Matt Breida. Shaq Lawson was a big one. Kyle Van Noy could be an interesting loss on the defensive side. Not a ton of action in the draft this year. But again, to me, the question is Tua. Can he stay healthy? If he can, the offense is super dynamic with their offensive weapons, both with the wide receivers in Hill and Waddle and now Berrios, but they have some fantastic running backs as well.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head. And I know we try not to talk about our fantasy teams, but I took a chance this year. I took Tua. Tua's my quarterback. I want to see if he can come out and perform. But when you got the cheetah running and Jalen Waddle, we looked at that combination so many times last year that could they be the best 1-2 combination? Receiver one, receiver two, and so this is going to be an interesting team as they grow a little bit. And can Terran Armstead be the offensive lineman that this team needs to protect the front side of I got to think about it, flip flop as Tua's lefty, that front side of Tua.
Yeah, it's funny to talk about fantasy football teams, and I haven't done my two main ones. They happen over the next 2 weeks, but I'm in a league with Eric and Harry and Kennedy who do our power rankings. You're just not that cool. I'm sorry. It was just something that Kennedy set up. But I'm either going to finish first or last in this league because I went Tua and Anthony Richardson as my two quarterbacks. So it's like hopefully one of them pays off, but there's a chance they both absolutely suck.
I picked up Bryce Young in the 14th round of our draft that we had the other day. So I took a few risks on some rookies this year too. So anyway,
The Miami Dolphins will win the AFC East basically if Hill stays healthy and Hill and Waddle become that 1-2, the best 1-2 punch in the league. I think they were right up there last year. Obviously, they couldn't show off their great talents with the second and third and fourth string quarterbacks that the Dolphins had to use for a while. But if that offense can click, the defense is good enough. I think they can win this division.
yeah, and you said it too. Tua's got to stay healthy. But I mentioned the man a minute ago, Armstead. Between Armstead, Ekberg, and Austin Jackson, they have to protect Tua. They have to give him enough time. We have to stay away from the injuries in this team. If they do that, I think they get a chance to run away with this division.
Mm-hmm. How about the New England Patriots? They get Zeke here just a couple of weeks ago. Juju Smith-Schuster comes in to the team, get a couple of offensive linemen, Mike Gesicki, who was a former Dolphin. Lose Damian Harris, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, not huge names there. But to me, we're talking about the health of Tua. It's, can Mac Jones finally take that next step? We saw Daniel Jones kind of take that next step last year, and he got paid for it. We'll talk about him and the Giants in the next hour and what we think of him. But to me, Mac Jones is a far worse version of Daniel Jones, and he just really hasn't shown the ability to lead a team right now.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the acquisitions. I can spit it out of Juju. How does Juju and Devontae Parker play and give? I think this is a lot better weapons than Jones had in the prior year. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with this.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, the defense is top notch. Like, if they ended up being the top defense in the league at the end of the year, I would not be surprised. They want to win game 17-13. So they want Mac Jones not to make mistakes. I think that's another reason why they bring in Zeke, to add him to the running back positions with Ramondre Stevenson, and let them carry the ball a ton, hold on, clock management, ball control, and then let the defense do its work. It's kind of what the Jets were trying to do last year, but the offense was just incredibly bad. The Patriots have a unsung defense. A lot of people will say it's great, but if you watch them, they're so suffocating, especially against younger quarterbacks, and that'll give them a few wins that you wouldn't expect later on in the year. So, all right, let's get into it. The Patriots will win the AFC East if...
For me, I said two things, and it's if Mac Jones can grow, and I think he can a little bit with Devontae, and now with Juju being there, Slater's still involved, and the other one is they got to feed Zeke, feed him the ball, give him the ball. I think Zeke's got a little bit of a chip to play now that he is not in Dallas anymore, and him and Pollard splitting time. I think he's going to run with Ramondre Stevenson. But I think it boils down to Mac Jones. How does he look in his third season?
To me, the Patriots win the division if the offense can play at the level of the defense. It's not going to happen, but they need the offense to completely improve.
All right. But I agree with Taylor, though, and he actually now does have an offensive coordinator. So
I don't think it matters. I don't think it's like a Trevor Lawrence got rid of Urban Meyer and now he can spread his wings kind of a situation. Period. Sorry. All right, let's get into it. The New York Jets. Who did they add? Just a few people. All on the offensive side. Aaron Rodgers, Dalvin Cook joined in, Alan Lazard, Mecole Hardman, Randall Cobb. They do bring in Quentin Jefferson to kind of replace Sheldon Rankins, so that defensive line is just red hot. How about Will McDonald IV, who they drafted in the first round? He's been looking insane in training camp. See if that can continue on when the games actually count. I'm trying not to be too over the top with my team. I'm trying, because as a Jets fan, we don't know how to handle this. We don't know how to handle success. Even last year, we knew the wheels were going to come off at some point. I was just happy they did not fall off until after the Green Bay game, so I could watch my team win a football game live and in person in Lambeau Field. It was a fantastic memory. So having optimism and legit optimism is tough. And now the Jets have given all of Jets Nation, Jets Kingdom, One Jets Drive, whatever you want to call it, reason to freak out. Have you heard the big news this week?
I have not heard the big news this week. Oh,
Aaron Rodgers is going to play in the preseason game against the Giants. Do I need to go on the same rant I did last year about playing starters in the preseason? I hated it last year, and it bit the Jets in the butt, though, to be fair, Zach Wilson just was never ready to be a starter last year, and it was fine that he got hurt for a few weeks. But still, we ended up with Joe Flacco as a starting quarterback because we played starters in the preseason. So all I want from Aaron Rodgers on Saturday against the Giants is stand in shotgun, grab it, and throw it. Like the moment his hands touch the football, it better be off to a receiver or hand off to a running back. I am starting to have a little bit more faith with this offensive line. Seeing Becton actually play 25 to 30 snaps in these preseason games and look decent, though he's facing second, third string people, but at least he's staying healthy. Gives me a little bit of optimism. But if Aaron Rodgers gets injured on Saturday, the show will go off the rails on Tuesday night. We will have 2 hours of not family-friendly conversation. Nothing else will be talked about. It will just be me doing what Eric's about to do when we get to Aussie Rules football next hour. Period.
Yeah, no, I thought you were talking about the big announcement about discount double check.
Whoa. Zach Wilson was the quarterback at Lambeau, sir. The future of the Jets, and what did Aaron Rodgers say? In 3 years, when Rodgers retires, because now it's not 1 year or 2 years, it's now 3 or 4 years. He has said Zach Wilson will now be the future quarterback of the Jets for the next 15 years. Okay? Put some respect on his name. And I was there to watch Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall do work, not the quarterback. But go ahead.
No, I thought you were talking about what I saw earlier today. The only thing I did see come out of your camp was the discount double check, as Aaron Rodgers has now parted ways with State Farm. So maybe he lost his insurance. So hopefully he's got some insurance for Saturday.
I don't want any insurance to be needed. I just want him to be healthy for the Buffalo game when they're on now.
I think you're 100%. It boils down to the offensive line for your team, and we go into it. I'll just jump right here and say it. Each team will win the division. The Jets will win the division if the O-line can protect Aaron Rodgers, because they have the talent. They've got the talent. They've got the talent on defense. We were both on the defensive side.
Awesome.
What they have done, but they've brought in people to produce, and that's the thing. It's going to boil down to Max Mitchell, Connor McGovern, those guys, Billy Turner. Those guys have to be in and playing quite well to protect Aaron Rodgers, and Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook open up some holes and do something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be really interesting. The Jets' first 6 games are absolutely brutal. I have been on record that if they go 3-3 during that stretch, I will be thrilled. If they do better than that, sweet. If they go 2-4, there's still room to bounce back. Obviously, if you go 1-5 or worse, your season's done. But those first 6 games are absolutely rough. But we will see how they do after that. It'll be a lot of fun. For me, it's just the offensive line. They'll win the division if the offensive line can stay healthy. And like you said, keep Aaron Rodgers upright. The defense is good enough. We talked about it a lot during the offseason, where I would fight back against people that just don't think the Jets could do anything this year. They were winning games when the offense was doing absolutely nothing. I'm pretty sure if you go back and look at the box score, I don't have it up in front of me, but I don't even think Zach Wilson threw for over 100 yards in that win against Green Bay. And they won the game. A lot of those losses that they got in the second half of the year, the defense was phenomenal. They were put in short yardage situations and still kept teams to under 20 points. Like, if Aaron Rodgers can go out there and just score 21 points every single game, the Jets are going to win far more games than they're going to lose because the defense is that good. So
Wilson had 110 yards passing.
So he barely passed 100. It was a brutal offensive game.
Breece Hall had 116 yards rushing.
Yeah, he was really, really good. So there you go. Let's get into it. Our predictions. And I will tell you right now, I've bounced them a couple of times just in this conversation. So go ahead. Give me your 4.
So I think we both agree. I think New England's going to still stay down in the cellar.
They're finally there.
I think Buffalo, like I said, I think they take a step back. I think Miami and New York just have too much talent now for this division. And so I'm going to put Buffalo 3. I'm going to put 2 in the Dolphins 2 and New York at 1. I think they are going to be very, very close, 1 and 2. So could be within a game of each other. So it might be coming down to one of the wild cards coming out of this division.
Listen, you put the Jets first in the division before I put mine in, and it gave me pause because, again, the optimism stuff is rough, and I don't know how to handle it. But I hope you're right. I really do. I'm with you. I think the Patriots will finish last. I don't think it'll be very close. And then the other 3, it could go so many different ways, but I'm not. As much as I am with you that I think Buffalo is going to take a step back, I do worry about the health of Miami, and I do worry Tua is going to miss some games. So I will say the Dolphins will finish 3rd, Buffalo 2nd. And yes, even though when we started the show, I did not have it typed out that way, I will have my New York Jets making the playoffs for the first time since 2010 and winning this division. The big question now is how many other teams from this division will still make the playoffs. We will give our wild card stuff in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. We still have the West to go next week, but there you go. Real quick, I don't have it completely. Let's hold on. Let me get this up here. Oh, I totally forgot about the power ranking slides. I'll bring those up in a second too. Don't let me forget, so we can out a few people. I had them open. I just didn't bring them up to my one I can actually show.
I don't think Kevin has figured out. He says you win already. We haven't done the draft yet.
All right, so that is a vote for the sports-related draft. I already got the win. It's fantastic.
Kevin, we got to talk to you how this works.
Here's your baseball scoreboard real quick. We'll go back to the power rankings, which Eric and Robert Taylor are so kind to be a part of. But, hey, once again, can you tell? The Nationals beat the Yankees, who continue to suck balls. The offense is so bad. The outfield had 3 outfield assists today. First time since like 1980. And I still lose. Tigers beat the Cubs. That's a big one. 8-6. Rays, they were in a big dogfight when we started the show against the Rockies. They went absolutely insane. They win 12-4. Phillies over the Giants 4-3. Pirates looking like they're going to beat the Cardinals. They're late. Blue Jays and Orioles in a big series. They're all tied up in the 9th inning. Guardians looking to upset the Dodgers. They're up by 5 in the 9th. Braves trying to make sure the Mets don't have this crazy comeback late in the year. They're up by 1. Maybe. I've lost track too. And or care, really. Jets, Jets. That's how I feel about the Yankees. Astros are over the Red Sox 3-0. Your Mariners, we'll talk about them in a little bit, over the White Sox 4-1, that in the 5th. Twins over the Brewers 3-2 in the 6th. And the Reds, right before I posted this, hit a home run by Matt McClain to take an early lead over the Angels. Let me pull up these power rankings, and we'll go through the AFC East real quick. I meant to do this while we were talking about teams, but I can't be a talent. There's no talent here, but I'm a talent and a producer at the same time. I'm bad at it. But there you go. Robert Taylor, 12th on the Buffalo Bills. The only one that did not have them in the top 6. I'm hoping he's right, and I'm hoping they will slide off a little bit. Everyone else pretty darn close with Buffalo. He was also the highest on the Miami Dolphins. You and I were right on the money at 10. For Miami, Harry had him at the lowest at 13. New England, none of us, or I guess Harry was the highest, right at 17, just barely in the second half of the rankings. But again, pretty close between the 4 of us. And then the New York Jets. You were actually the highest on the Jets. So anybody that questioned it, Hagen was the one that had him in the top 5. I agreed with Eric and Sean with 7th. And then a couple other people are haters, and that's okay. Hopefully they will prove you wrong come September 11th. All right, there you go. Did a lot of work on those. I now am in a power or a Photoshop class, so I'm learning how to do some of this stuff, and I'm having some fun with it. Let's get into some Major League Baseball and get into the news. Mike Trout was activated. He last played on July 3rd when he injured his left hamate bone during a swing. Angels completely imploded after he left. They went 16-22. Too late for them to come back, right?
No, I think 100%. I think it's too late. They didn't make a move with Shohei, and I think it's just paying for it. My big question now is, with Trout being healthy, where do these 2 men go now? I don't think they stay around in LA. I think maybe Shohei stays in LA but changes uniforms, so it'll be interesting to see how this team finishes out mentally in the next 30 games.
By the way, Robert, I'm completely expecting this. Okay? I'm expecting the Jets to be this year's Denver Broncos. As a Jets fan, that's what we're used to. That is why I'm trying to temper the expectations and the excitement, but team's looking good at defense, especially. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they finish. Obviously, I don't see them coming back. We'll bring up the standings here shortly. How about this in your daily note of Major League Baseball players getting injured in weird ways? Yordan Alvarez was scratched from today's lineup for the Houston Astros after jamming his index finger on his left hand while shutting a door in his house.
I've heard a lot of things, but jamming your finger into the door, that's a new one.
He's human.
This is how funny it is. My wife laughs at me every time I close the door of my car, because as I sit down in the car, I reach out with my hand to the top of the door and swing it up here instead of putting my hand down on the handle to pull it here. I reach up above the window and slam it that way. It's just habit. That's the way I got. I never
your finger more. I don't.
She just laughs. She thinks I'm gonna crush my fingers in the door.
You could pull an Alvarez, and then you're gonna come in here with 4 taped fingers, and she's gonna laugh at you harder than she's ever laughed at you in your 25 years of marriage.
Oh yeah, no. It is what it is.
Chicago White Sox part ways with Executive VP Ken Williams and GM Rich Hahn. I'm waiting for that news from the New York Yankees. Please, anyone.
Sooner than later. It's got to be done.
Speaking of the Yankees, they do promote the number 3 prospect, Everson Pereira, today. He played out in left field. Did absolutely nothing like the rest of the offense did. The Yankees, 1 run came off the bat of their backup catcher, Ben Roosevelt, who is batting .090 on the year. He was their first hit in like the 5th inning. That's Yankee baseball for you. The bigger news to me, their second prospect, Jason Dominguez, a.k.a. the Martian, got promoted to AAA baseball. Could we see him right at the tail end of this year? Probably not, but this gives him a better chance, I think, to make the team next year. Pereira, Dominguez, and Judge as our 3 outfielders next year. Sign me up. I'm cool with that. Speaking of prospects, this was wild news that happened this week. Padres promoted top prospect Ethan Salas to AA San Antonio. Why are we talking about AA? Because Salas is 17 years old.
He's still in high
He's-
school.
He is 2 years older than my son, and he's at AA in Major League Baseball. Crazy. Absolute crazy. You had a Gunnar Henderson note you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson has just been unbelievable for this Baltimore Orioles. What he has done with this ball club all season long. He has a chance to hit for the cycle the other day against the A's. Baltimore crushing the A's. He ends up with a double, a triple, a home run, and hits one in the 8th inning down the line, and he turns it into 2. Do you blame him for not stopping and staying at first base?
Absolutely not. The cycle is so pointless. I forget what professional player I listened to go on a complete rant, but I agree. It's just such a fluky stat. What is the better day, hitting for the cycle or having 3 extra base hits?
4 extra base hits that day. So
yeah, there you go. Even better. 4 extra base hits. They didn't even have a single. Just 4 extra base hits or a cycle. I'm taking the 4 extra base hits every day of the week. Your Mariners sweep Houston. Is it still a 6-game or is it now a 7-game winning streak for you guys?
I put that.
We beat the White Sox.
Beat White Sox yesterday, so
that's why you don't do these notes until today.
I have to find time to do them, so I did them. Yeah, but here, let's talk about that for a second. And
you have
the
30.
Hottest,
you have 30 seconds.
No, the hottest guy in.
We have 9 minutes left to get through all of baseball. You get 30 seconds.
The hottest guy in baseball, Julio Rodriguez, 17 hits in 4 games. He had more hits than your New York Yankees in the same time.
He had the same amount.
You sent
me the same thing.
I want to say it was 17 to 22. Anyway,
that's great. You had 17 hits, or he had 17 hits, and the Yankees had 17 hits. You sent it to me. Someone else sent it to me. I was tagged in it in Twitter. By the way, since we want to talk about it, what year does Julio Rodriguez get traded to the New York Yankees? What year? That's what I want to know.
Nah, I don't see that.
Nah, me. It happens every time. You said the same thing when I told you or asked you when is Ichiro becoming a Yankee. It happened a bit too late in his career, but it happened. It's going to happen to Julio as well.
Eventually. So, with that being said, how about your?
We talked about the Yankees. We're going to move on. Let's get to the standings, and we can talk about it here. Again, we still got the power rankings. We still got to get to our awards, which you've already named one, but that's fine. Big news here. The Seattle Mariners are only 2 games out of not a playoff spot. They're in a wild card now. 2 games out of the AL West. Out of nowhere. They're playing fantastic. Texas and Houston are struggling here a little bit. We're not quite into September, but the Mariners are starting to do what they did last year. Getting into that role a little bit on the back of Julio Rodriguez, but also on the back of fantastic pitching for your team. I really think that they have a chance now to win this division with how red hot they're going. And oh, by the way, the Texas Rangers are falling over themselves to see who can blow a save next. We want to talk about fantasy sports. I have Aroldis Chapman and Will Smith in my fantasy baseball league to try to get strikeouts and saves. Aroldis Chapman comes in the 9th inning yesterday and gives up a home run and blows the save. Then he comes out and he pitches the 10th as well. I want to say he struck out the side. So now the Rangers still have a chance. The Rangers score 2 runs in the top of the 11th inning. Will Smith comes in and gives up 3 runs and they lose. So I had 2 blown saves from the same team on my fantasy team yesterday. It's fantastic. Absolutely great. So yeah, that's the big story, I think, right now in the American League are the Mariners. I need to see Toronto get red hot too. Let's knock Houston completely out. I think we're never in agreement come baseball, but I think we're in agreement there. Yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
Go Blue Jays, and I hate to say it, go Mariners. Just get Houston out of there. The wild card continues to be insane in the National League, and again, it really is the only thing to watch. Though the Cubs are making the NL Central really interesting, though they lost today. Cubs are a wild card as well as the Giants. Arizona, Cincinnati, Miami all just within 2 games out. I still believe in the San Diego Padres, even they're 5.5 out. The talent on there is just insane. But yeah, as we get closer and closer, things are starting to come together. There's a lot of names you can completely take off these lists, but there's a lot to figure out over this last month.
100%.
Let's get into it. Your weekly awards, and you already spoiled yours.
Yeah, I have to go Homer. I'm doing it 7 games. That's Julio Rodriguez, 7 games, 21 of 37, batting almost 500, 570, 7 runs, 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs. So yeah, huge week for him.
For me, I'm going to go Charlie Blackmon. Really cool that he came back. He fractured his right hand. He missed 53 games. He came back last week, played in 5 games, went 7 of 17 with 2 triples and 2 home runs. It's not too bad for a man that's 97 years old.
I was going to say he's older. He's come back. Is he still got the haircut and beard as he?
I don't know about the haircut, but he definitely has the beard,
the long hair and beard. So
yeah, he will never make it as a Yankee. He's 37 years old. Is Charlie Blackmon. 7 runs, 5 RBIs in that stretch. My pitcher, let's go relief. Let's go Raciel Iglesias for the Braves. 3 appearances. He had 2 saves in both of his save opportunities. Pitched 3 innings, did not allow a single base runner, and he struck out 5.
I'm going with my World Series winner.
Oh,
I got to give.
Do I need to bring up those standings again?
A little bit of love as.
Look at them, 13.5 games back.
They're away.
Can Colorado catch the Cardinals? That's the question.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But I'm going to go Dakota Hudson, 2-0 in his 2 starts, just over 12 innings pitched, and had 10 Ks while only giving up 4 runs last week.
All right, sir. Power rankings time.
All right,
give me your power rankings.
I'm going to stay the top 3 are going to stay the same. I'm going to say Atlanta, LA, and Baltimore.
Me too. I'm trying to do my gift. Me too. Let me do my skit. Me too on the top 3.
You too. All right. 4, I am going to move Tampa Bay back up. Yeah, I think I moved them back up. What? Did you change it? Well, and so this is where it became tough. And I didn't want to feel like a homer because as how hot they've been. I want to put Seattle there, but I'm going to keep Texas in 1 more week. But they're imploding right now. They're slowing down. I called it. I said I didn't think they would keep things up, but I really want to go homer, but I'm going to say the Rangers.
So you really wanted to go Seattle?
I did.
Me too. I put Seattle 5th for you. I'm not afraid. No, Seattle's playing absolutely phenomenal. I hate to see it as somebody that loves to hate on Seattle sports teams just because I like to rile up the locals. They're playing too well. I do think Texas is the better team overall, but this Mariner team, for whatever reason, they start rolling a little bit, and they're tough to stop until you get to October. Yeah, Eric, if you missed it last week, we twinned all through the 5, and I started a new gimmick, and then Robert just jumped all over my gimmick. It's just really disappointing. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I mean, we've only done 145 of these shows now, and he can't let me have my stupid gimmick.
It's been a long day. It's been a long, stressful day.
It's just
I'm old. Remember. Here's that. I feel old, especially after somebody made the comment today as my wife put pictures of our wedding pictures up and anniversary pictures up, and put me as being old with a gray beard. Yeah, with me being a gray beard. And look at all the gray. I have to go cut this all off tonight.
It's brutal. All right, sir. Let's get in. Yeah, there you go. Yes. Speaking of.
Don't be going there, Kevin.
Speaking of the Seattle Mariners, who won 116 games and then failed to make it to the World Series. It's time for the sports-related draft. And it was my turn to come up with the topic. By the way, we tied last week, which sucks, but we only had 2 voters, 1 win each way. So we'll take the tie. That's okay with me. My turn to pick the topic, and I went with the biggest collapses in sports history. So I picked the topic, so that means you get to go first.
Now, I know you weren't around for this one. I wasn't
You were,
either,
I
but
know. You were, I know.
I wasn't either, but I'm going to go with something that we brought up in another draft about a year ago, and we talked about some of the best play calls ever happened. And this one, I'm going to go with the 1951 Brooklyn Dodgers when they blew the lead, the 13 game lead in August to the New York Giants, and the Giants end up winning the pennant. And I'm going to go with the shot heard around the world. I mean, one of the biggest implosions, lose 13 games and let the Giants come back, win the pennant. And it just, one of the most iconic calls that you will ever hear radio.
And that is why I'm not hating on you for your first pick, because it gave us one of the greatest play calls of all time. But I feel like there were other collapses that were about the same. What did Seattle come back from against the Angels in 95? I want to say that was double digits, right?
Yeah, it was double digits.
So 13 games in August. I mean, it's a brutal way to lose it. The Mets have a big lead against the Braves a couple of years ago and let that one completely implode too. But again, a fantastic call came from it, and it is quite the collapse. So I'm not disagreeing with it, but I don't know about top overall. I went a little different way with my first pick. And how about the only Major League Baseball team ever to have a 3-0 lead in a series and blow it? And you blow it against your arch nemesis, your big-time rival, the team that, let's just be quite frank about it, the team that lost to the Yankees the year prior, which made Aaron Boone a household name with New York and then made him a head coach, I guess, later, which really sucks. But the Yankees blowing their series lead in 2004, the Why Not Us Boston Red Sox, who then went on to sweep the Cardinals and win their first World Series since 1918. 30 for 30 has a fantastic documentary on this series, which is a great watch, but it does just, it tears at me a little bit to watch it because it's just, again, a really, really good Yankee team. I thought the team in 04 was better than they were in 03, and they can't even get to the World Series. I think the Yankees beat the Cardinals in the World Series as well if they get there. And yeah, and the stolen base there in Game 7 against Mariano Rivera was huge too. So yeah, there you go. That is my first pick.
Then to answer your question, you were correct. It was 12 and a half games. So just a half game less than the Dodgers Giants. The Mariners came back from 12 and a half back in 95. So I'm going to jump away from baseball. As much as we both love baseball, the stats of baseball, I'm going to go back to probably one of the best comeback games, and it happened to be a playoff game, wild card game. And that's when Buffalo came back and beat the Houston Oilers after being up, but being down 35-3, and known as the comeback game. Jim Kelly had gotten hurt in the final season game, which was the game before this one, to the same Houston Oilers team they had played the week prior, and just crazy. Warren Moon already had over 200 yards rush, passing, 4 touchdowns going into the halftime, but the Oilers held on to the ball. They just did things, but Frank Reich comes back, 4 touchdowns in the second half. He gets the ball to Andre Reed. Andre Reed, huge, and that is a big point of them getting into the playoffs. Steve Christie hits a 32-yard field goal to end up knocking off the Oilers, who were predicted in that year to be in the Super Bowl. So
yeah, and it would have separated the 4 straight for Buffalo, where they weren't able to win. Right.
You don't want to talk about you don't want to talk about them and Maryland and all that.
Kevin brought up why right in the Super Bowl. I think that's more of a choke job than a collapse. But yeah, it was between this and the 04 Yankees for me for my first pick. So when you took them right after, I was a little disappointed. I also went away from baseball with my second pick. And let's go to the Masters. Famously, Greg Norman had a lot of collapses in his career, but none bigger than at the Masters in 1996. He had a 6-stroke lead against Nick Faldo going into the final round, and he ended up finishing 5 strokes back. It wasn't even close. It wasn't like he was hanging on and lost it at the end, and you give credit to Faldo for having such a great comeback. This is a complete collapse. Norman lost the lead by the 12th hole, again, after having a 6-stroke lead. Faldo shoots a 67, which is respectable, pretty good final round. But Norman shoots a 78 to lose the Masters, and that's what he did. And now he's I'm trying to win a vote, so I won't say anything negative about what he's doing now.
So the bad thing, though, is you miss one key part of this entire thing of your second pick, is the respect that you don't have for Sir Nick Faldo. He is knighted. No. Yeah. He is a sir.
That's fine. But he's not a sir here. I don't care. Yeah, that's an England thing.
So, yeah, smart, man.
I thought about it. I know how the game works a little bit. All right, give me your third pick.
All right. So Kevin brought him up a few minutes ago, the 2001 Mariners. They had one bad implosion during that season, and I hate bringing it up, and I'm gonna there he is, Kenny Lofton, and that happens to be the game from August I want to say it was August 5th 2001, and the Cleveland Indians come back and score 12 runs and win this one over the Seattle Mariners, who the Mariners were on their way 116 wins that year, 46 losses. This was a big loss for this team.
Was it?
As they had lost,
a big loss?
It was. 15. They were up so big, and they were just cruising, especially with the lineup.
Time out. You're trying to tell me that this was a big loss.
Mm-hmm.
They were 80-31 after this loss. They went 36-15 the rest of the way. This was a whatever loss to the Seattle Mariners.
I think this had a lot.
I expected you to pick other Indians games, notably the ALCS, where this 116-win team could not get it to the World Series.
I think it's a big one. This was a slight mental change on how Hasegawa how he was pitching and what he was doing as a closer, and he gave up that huge hit to Cabrera. I think this was that time that he started showing the effects of him pitching all the time. So yeah, there are other games, but this was a huge one. This was the first time that was so big of a amount of runs that had been scored. It was like 76 years when this happened prior, and that was the Detroit Tigers and Chicago White Sox. They both also was 12 runs down and come back, and so I think it was a memory of a game that I remember seeing in person that was a huge implosion.
Do you know what I remember from that year?
2001?
Yeah.
Wasn't that
Yankees dogpile?
Yeah.
Where they beat the Mariners in the ALCS in 5 and then had the greatest World Series of all time. They just happened to be on the losing effort because the Arizona Diamondbacks had a bloody sock or something. No, I guess that was Boston that had the bloody sock, but Kurt Schilling was still on that team.
Luis Gonzalez had that big
the little blue pit. Best World Series of all time. I hate the fact that the Yankees lost it, but man. All right, my last pick, the 2011 Boston Red Sox. They had a 9-game lead in the wild card race that year before going 7-20 in September. Now, 9 games is not as big as what you brought up with the Dodgers. It's not as big as the Angels lost to the Mariners, but it was the drama behind the scenes that really stood out to me there. And that Lackey, Lester, and Beckett, the reports started coming out that those three were drinking beer and eating fried chicken and playing video games in the clubhouse on the days that they were not starting. And you were thinking, well, they're not starting. It doesn't matter. In September, those three went a combined 2-7 with a 6.45 ERA. Those three were fantastic throughout the year and kind of went, well, we're making the playoffs. We're going to relax and not worry about things. And, well, they needed to worry about things. Terry Francona got let go after that. So the collapse really was mentally for the Boston Red Sox, not as much how big of a lead they had.
So they pulled the Cleveland Indians from Major League of needing a live chicken for,
Well, the opposite way. They killed the chicken and then it made things worse. Kevin still votes for me. That's what matters. Let us know in the comments below who you vote for. Again, my picks are the 2004 New York Yankees blowing a 3-0 lead. Greg Norman blowing a 6-stroke lead in the 1996 Masters, and the Red Sox blowing a 9-game lead and eating chicken and playing video games in the clubhouse in 2011. Robert took the 1951 Brooklyn Dodgers, who blew a 13-game lead. The comeback where the Bills came back on the Oilers, who blew a 27-3 lead, though it's not 28-3 like Atlanta. I just thought about that.
35-3.
30. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. But still, I think 28-3 was another one that could have went to.
I thought about
2001 Seattle Mariners. And you picked the wrong one. But there you go. Eric also votes for me. I win this week.
Boo.
I heard a really dumb joke. You want to hear it?
Uh-oh.
Why was 19 afraid of 20?
Why was 19 afraid of 20?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard that side of one.
Yeah, because 28-3.
All right.
You can go tell that to any Falcons fan you want. You're welcome. I forget who I heard it from. I saw it on a YouTube video or a short or something, and it got me to chuckle. So there you go. That is your joke of the day. Or not. Dad joke of the day. There you go. Fantastic. All right, let's get into it. Let's get back into the NFL and let's talk. Oh, that one. The NFC East. Let's do that preview. Last year, the Eagles went 14-3 on their way to making it to the Super Bowl. Dallas was 12-5. The Giants 9-7-1. And the Washington Commanders a respectable 8-1 that year. Once again, player to watch is supposed to be like players that people aren't thinking about. And Robert Hagan went with the guy I think is a deadlock to win Defensive Player of the Year.
100%. And he wants to fight. He wants to play. He wants to fight in the preseason.
Sheamus?
That is Micah Parsons.
Are you talking about Sheamus? What is happening here? Banger after banger after. Sorry. Go ahead.
Listen, Micah Parsons has brought up so much stuff. He is ready to play, prove that he's going to take this team on his back, and I think he could do it, especially with the few of the guys around him. You know, DeMarcus Lawrence and Leighton Vander Esch. You've got Trayvon Diggs. I mean, this defense could be. You talked about defense there in the last set, but this could easily be a defense to really look as maybe top 3 defense in the entire league this year.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. To me, I'm going to go with a team that I don't have a lot of high hopes for, but they have a very young running back in Brian Robinson, for the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are a team that have a lot of question marks offensively. Sam Howell. How is he going to perform as the starting quarterback for this team? They have some good offensive weapons as well. We'll get into it in a little bit later. But to me, if they're really going to step up, it's going to come from the running game. Antonio Gibson starting to get a little bit older. And Brian Robinson looked fantastic. I look for him to have a big breakout here.
Kevin does say Kayvon Thibodeau. I could see that being as long as he can stay healthy. He did have the little bit of an injury last year, but, you know,
because Kevin is just holding on to the last little bit of the Pac-12. Yeah, so he wants to bring up Pac-12 players while they're still in the Pac-12.
He's picking a duck instead of a husky, so I'm a little confused here.
It's not hard to pick. All right, let's get into it. Each individual team preview. How about the Dallas Cowboys? They lose Zeke. They lose. There is no pack. There technically we still got a pack. We got a Pac-12 this year, and then next year. For now, it's a Pac-4 until they actually do something. But for now, we still have a pack. One more year. They lose Zeke. They lose Dalton Schultz. Connor McGovern's a big loss on the offensive line. A couple of defenders as well. Get Ronald Jones. I'm not a big fan of that. Brandon Cooks is an interesting pickup as well. But kind of what we talked about with the AFC East preview, it's really what's the quarterback going to do? Dak Prescott had far too many turnovers last year, and the team still won 12 games. If he can clean things up, there's a good chance this team not only can make the playoffs again, but can win this division. It just really comes down to him.
Yeah, I think you're right. You look at it, his receiving core was CD, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup. Is that enough? Is that enough with Dak and Tony Pollard to project this offensive side of this team through games? I think the defense can keep things in check, and I think the defense can keep this team under giving up. Probably I'm going to go out on a limb and say this: keeping teams under 17 points a game. I could see that happening.
Yeah, Prescott last year, 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions in the 12 games that he started. We'll see what he is able to do now. Kellen Moore, no longer the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. He's now with the Chargers. Was he even the offensive coordinator, or is he just a play caller for Dallas? I always forget.
No, he was the OC, so it makes
so now he's with the Chargers. So that could be interesting too.
Especially with Mike McCarthy calling, how is he going to change up the play calling to adapt to Dak? So
hey, my brother from another mother, because he can't spell his name right, Kyle Isbell singled and scored 2 for the Kansas City Royals. Again, he spells his last name wrong, but still, go Isbell. It's great. All right, the Dallas Cowboys will win the NFC East if.
I said it. Tony Pollard has to have a monster year. I think it's going to rely on a lot of him, and I think CeeDee Lamb is going to be. Those two guys have to be the monster year. CeeDee Lamb's I think's got to have 1,000 yards and at least 10 touchdowns for this team to come away with a win.
For me, I already brought it up as Dak Prescott and the number of interceptions. He cannot have that many this year and have the Cowboys win this division. I think it's wide open. I think the Eagles are very good, but Dallas is fantastic on paper as well. But it really just comes down to Dak. I'm not worried about Zeke being gone. I think Tony Pollard will be just fine. So yeah, it comes down to Dak and being able to keep his defense off the field. The defense for the Cowboys is very good too. But on paper, it's a great team, but when you have that many turnovers, it makes it very difficult. Mm-hmm. How about the New York Giants? Get a couple wide receivers and Paris Campbell and Jamison Crowder, along with a tight end from the Raiders, Darren Waller, who could be pretty darn good. What do you think of the Giants this year?
Yeah, I think it's another year where we've got to figure out, is it Daniel Jones's team? He played a lot better this last year. He's got to produce. And I think that's the thing with him is I don't think he has a big weapon to throw to. And so with him, I think it's going to rely a lot on Saquon Barkley. And I know he's not happy with his contract. So it's just going to boil down to if this team can gel together, how they will produce. Yeah, I agree with Kevin, though. Kayvon Thibodeau is a great player. Hands down, a great player, edge rusher. Can he be enough for that defense? I really don't know if he's enough to keep this team in a barely above 500 team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you see here from our power rankings, we're all right, just middle of the road with this team. Eric high of 13, Harry the low of 19. Most of us right at that middle of the mark, or the middle of the league mark. This is a team I'm just unsure about. I'm not a believer in Daniel Jones, but he did improve last year. What will he do now that he's gotten paid? What will Saquon Barkley do? Can he stay healthy? I love the addition of Darren Waller to be a go-to guy for Jones. The defense as well is pretty decent for New York. I thought they outperformed their talent last year, and it's just, will they be able to keep that mark or be able to even take another step forward? Did we just all undersell them last year, or did they overperform? So it'd be really interesting to see how they do. To me, the Giants will win the NFC East if Daniel Jones lives up to that big payday. He got paid like a top-tier quarterback. He needs to play like one if the Giants are going to top both the Cowboys and the Eagles in the final standings.
And I think it's the guy you have on the screen right there, Saquon Barkley. It's going to boil down to him. And, he didn't get the contract he wanted, but none of the running backs in the entire league have got the contract. I think he proves something where he can. I see him moving away, but he's going to put up the effort to make this team win the division if he can produce. I'm going to throw that out here: 1,300 yards. If he gets 1,300 yards, there's a good chance.
It'd be interesting to see if they can compete or not. How about the Philadelphia Eagles, your defending NFC champions? I really love the addition of DeAndre Smith to take over for Miles Sanders. I think that's a big improvement at that position for the Eagles. Rashad Penny, the Seattle Seahawks know him. He's very talented when he can stay on the field. Unfortunately, he rarely can stay on the field. Also get Terrell Edmonds to play safety for them. They do lose a couple big pieces on the line, which would be interesting. Andre Dillard is gone on the offensive side, and then Robert Quinn and Ndamukong Suh both leave. I kind of worry about the Eagles a little bit just for the fact that they had the healthiest offensive line last year. So we said it a lot, basically in every preview, and it's the easy way to go. But health will be the big concern. If the Eagles are not as lucky this year, how will things go for the offense? Jalen Hurts can run, and Jalen Hurts had a fantastic year. But if the offensive line starts getting too banged up and you're having too many backups out there, is it going to cause havoc? And will Hurts then start to try to overdo himself, try to do too much, and create too many mistakes?
Yeah, 100%. And we've talked about offensive line, and I think this was one of the better offensive line. I mean, you have a leader and Jason Kelsey that is. You saw there was a little bit of a skirmish today at combined practice. He got into it with Indianapolis Colts guy, and it will be interesting if him and Lane Johnson can really produce. I think it'll be good, but they'll win. I think they win this division if Jalen Hurts puts up MVP numbers. If he can put up MVP numbers, he definitely wins and they move on.
I don't know if he has to go that far. I mean, obviously that will, if he's the MVP, they definitely won the division, and I think that'll be just great. But to me, it's if they get as much luck. I said it already, as much luck as they did injury-wise, that will be a huge key for them to hold off the Dallas Cowboys. And as you can see, we all have them in the top three. Kennedy and Zach were actually the only two that did not have them second, which makes sense that most of us have them at second because they were the Super Bowl runner-up. That's why we all have Kansas City at number one. We'll talk about them next week, and then our chat will completely blow up with Robert Taylor. But we will deal with that next week. Finally, how about those Washington Commanders? Not a ton of movement. They lose Tyler Heineke and Carson Wentz, but again, they've already kind of had placeholders set to lead that position. Can Sam Howell be decent enough for this team? A couple of offensive line help for this team. It's not a sexy squad at all. I like some of their wide receivers. I like their defense a little bit. But I think the rest of this division has improved too much for Washington to stay in contention.
Yeah, the big thing I think too is I think a lot of the drama has finally started to move away or is starting to move away from this team. And that's the biggest thing, that they've been under that cloud of so much black drama. Let me rephrase that: the black cloud of drama over the last 2 years. And I think that's the big one. issue whether or not McLaren has a big issue, getting hurt in preseason. Like you said a few minutes ago, some of these starters playing in preseason gets hurt. And so now that it's going to be a big thing, but this team bought into Sam Howell right away. And I think it's his team, and it'll be interesting to see how Eric Bieniemy does with this group of guys.
Yeah, for sure. The Washington Commanders will win the NFC East if the weight of Dan Snyder getting lifted from ownership means way more for this team than we are thinking. The drama is gone, and maybe that has really been holding back this team. If it's more than we think, then they have a chance to win this division. I just don't see it.
Yeah, for me, I just said his name a minute ago, but I think it boils down to Eric Bieniemy. I think this team can go places. Eric Bieniemy has been in the shadows of Andy Reid for so many years. I think this could help turn this team around a little bit. Brian Robinson is going to be good. He's your lookout player. I think it's going to come down to that.
All right, give me your NFC East predictions.
Well, for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. We're going to keep Philadelphia at number 1. I think they have the biggest chance of repeating again, offensive line, and if Jalen Hurts can do what he's been doing. I'm going to do Dallas number 2. Yes, you said it. They look good on paper. Can Dak produce? New York, I think they're missing one key piece. I think they're missing a receiver to make this team really good. And Washington, yes, I do think they take a step up. They get out of the shadow of what's going on with Dan Snyder and with Eric Bieniemy making a change. I think they take a step up. They could be easily above 500 this year.
I have the exact same finishers as you. Eagles will win the division. Cowboys in second, most likely in the playoffs. Giants around that 500 mark. Could they get an extra win and get to 10 wins? It's possible. And then I see Washington as a 6-7 win team. I don't think any team in this division is bad, but I just don't think Washington can hang with the other three. There is a chance all three, the Giants, Eagles, and Cowboys, all make the playoffs in a week NFC. Again, we'll make those predictions in 2 weeks. Some other NFL news to get to, and the big one that came out in the last day or two. Jonathan Taylor is seeking a trade. He's been seeking a trade, from Indianapolis, but now the report is that the Colts are allowing him to seek a trade and ask other teams, but it will not be cheap. Indianapolis is asking for at least a first-round pick. We saw the big haul that the Panthers got for trading Christian McCaffrey in season. Is there any chance the Colts trade Jonathan Taylor?
You would sure hope so, to get some draft capital or a number 1 pick, but I don't see anybody really jumping on the wagon to get him right away to give up on number 1 pick. So I think he's going to be stuck there for 1 year, and whether or not he plays up to his potential, that's the big part.
Yeah, the big thing will be if injuries hurt a team. Like we saw Miami really being in the running back market when Zeke and Dalvin Cook were out there. Could they still be in the market if another team has somebody go down? Say a Tony Pollard goes down. Would Jerry Jones go, all right, I'll give up a first round pick and this and that to get Jonathan Taylor? Don't forget, he's 24 years old. Mm-hmm. This is not an aging running back that has a lot of mileage on his legs. He struggled last year, just 4.5 yards a carry, but he only played in 11 games because he was injured, and he was never really 100%. But he's just a year removed from 1,800 yards and 18 touchdowns. And his first 2 years, he was averaging over 5 yards a carry. This is a fantastic back that has several years left. It's a big asking price, especially this late in the preseason, as the season's just about to start. However, we saw McCaffrey be a big bump for the 49ers midseason. We're seeing teams in the NFL be a bit more active during the trade deadline now. So I think week 6, week 7, somewhere in there, if a team is still in contention and they lose their main back, they may go, you know what, that's fine. We'll give up a couple of draft picks and we'll solidify Jonathan Taylor, and then we'll tell him in the offseason we'll make sure he gets paid.
Yeah, he's got the talent to produce and be a stud. And I think he just has fallen on an ownership that doesn't want to offer anything. But we've talked about the last few weeks is there is such not a good enough value for running backs anymore. What's sad is you think about it, not as just a team player, but think about it then as fantasy stuff. It was crazy to watch my fantasy draft the other day. They all went running backs.
Running back. Fantasy is completely different.
Which is crazy, and you would think that some of these owners would design or offensive coordinators would start designing things more with the running quarterbacks coming in to design around
see,
play calling to get in.
You're missing the point. They're not using the running backs. They just know that running back A can be replaced with running back B very easily. How many times have we seen a running back get moved off and a running back comes in and is just as good, if not better? Kansas City was doing that for years with Priest Holmes, and then who was the guy that ended? Kareem Hunt came in for him and was just as good. Jonathan Taylor came in for another back and was far better than him. Dalvin Cook got shipped off because they feel Madison will be just as good, if not better, for Minnesota. It's just owners believe that while you need a top-tier quarterback that's extremely tough to replace, a running back can just be moved. It's like, we just need a talent in this position. And there's so many of them out there that's fine.
So they're like, you got a great analogy, and you were saying moving around. So they're basically the pawn of the chessboard of NFL football, right? Yeah, I mean,
they're the little 4-square piece of Lego that you can just replace with any other 4-piece square of Lego that I step on all the time. Some other NFL news: Seahawks rookie wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba had wrist surgery for a broken bone earlier this week. He says he'll be ready for week 1. Some reports say it's more of a 3 to 4 week injury. It's going to be extremely close. If you're Seattle, are you more cautious than not with your young wide receiver?
Yeah, you would think so, but you still have DK Metcalf. You still have Tyler Lockett. You don't have any really huge big names behind it, but you've got Noah Fant that has done Will Disley more of the blocking tight end, but I think you wait a week or two. We'll see how things go after this last preseason game, but you look at who they play. And they play the Rams very first week. So do you want to force him up against the Rams and then maybe week 2 at Detroit? So it all boils down to what Pete Carroll thinks he should be doing.
Yeah, being a division game makes it a little bit more interesting. But I don't rush him back. As like you said, you have Lockett, you have Metcalf, you have great wide receivers in Seattle. Would I be crazy to suggest that just to be safe and to make everything sets and everything heals, and then he even gets even more practice time, that you don't even bring him back until after the bye week? They have an extremely early bye week in week 5. So while you want him to get experience out there, I think with getting the Rams, Lions, Panthers, and Giants, you can go 2-2, 3-1 even without him. I don't think he's going to be the game changer. Obviously, he's a great piece, and I think he's going to be a great receiver for Seattle. But there's part of you that can go, you know what? If it just doesn't, like, if everything goes great, and during the week off that everyone has between the final preseason game and the regular season, he comes out and said it feels great. He's passing all the tests. Cool, get him out there. But if there's any kind of doubt, just go ahead and take your time with him. He's a luxury piece for you right now, if you are Seattle. Happened to be announced yesterday Baker Mayfield is officially your starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for Week 1. You and I both had Tampa Bay finishing in dead last when we did the NFC South preview last week. Does him getting locked in as the quarterback change your mind?
I don't think so. I think he's going to have to prove something. But Kyle Trask is very capable of running this team, and I love the way that they kept putting them on the depth chart of one together. But I really would love to see how the chemistry falls between Mayfield and a very ball dependent person in Mike Evans. Mike wants the ball all the time. He wants to be the playmaker. So it's going to be interesting how Baker and him feed off each other. Same even with Chris Godwin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have a talented receiving core. How can Baker make sure that these guys are involved? But I still don't think they come out of the bottom.
And then finally, in just normal football news, Michigan has self-imposed a 3-game suspension on Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, he was going through his stuff where he bought lunch for a kid during the COVID time, and the NCAA is a complete joke. I know Eric always gets on here and talks about the Super League. I'm ready for the NCAA to be gone. I forget who the guest was on Colin Cowherd today, but I echo everything he says. So go watch the Colin Cowherd clip is on YouTube. Everything he said about the NCAA needing to be gone, and there are things starting to be put into place where they may end up being gone in the next few years. It's a complete joke that Harbaugh even has to go through this because he bought a kid a lunch. Like, it's such a complete mess. It's like he's basically what he said was during that COVID time, NCAA would not come out and officially say how many people could show up to these games. They would not set a set attendance rule, but if you had one extra practice or if you bought a kid a lunch when you weren't supposed to, you're in big trouble. So I do like Michigan finally going, you know what, we're just going to do this because it's East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. There is some thought put into this by the Wolverines, which means Harbaugh can now come back. He will coach against Rutgers before he really gets into the harder part of the Wolverine schedule of Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, and stuff. And he's not missing any game against a top 25 opponent. He's just another reason why I think college football teams schedule cupcakes. It's in case of infractions. Hey, we sat on our player to start the year. It's really sucks that we were unable to have him play against Idaho State.
Yeah, it's just funny on some of the rules and regulations of how that goes down.
It's a complete mess, complete disaster.
Agree
Your Major League Baseball scoreboard, a bunch more games have been completed. Pittsburgh did hold on to beat St. Louis 6-3. Cleveland over the Dodgers 8-3, and the Braves hold on 3-2 over the Mets. Going on right now, your Seattle Mariners continue to win. They are up over the White Sox 6-2 in the 7th. Milwaukee over the Twins 7-3 going to the 9th inning. Houston all over Boston 7-1 in the 8th. The Angels over the Reds 2-1 in the 4th. In a game that 17 people are probably watching, the Oakland Athletics are defeating the Kansas City Royals 5-2. Miami over San Diego 3-0, because that's what San Diego does. They don't score forever. And then Arizona over Texas right now 3-0. That's a big game for you Mariner fans, for sure. Little League World Series is continuing to go. I know Washington is still undefeated in the World Series. They play tomorrow, but I forget against who.
They will play against. Yep. Yeah, they'll play against Southwest. They had a great game yesterday against Southeast, the team out of Tennessee, and had a young lady who is unbelievable pitcher. Just ran into the wrong Seattle team. They've been playing quite well. Listen, the team that I was excited to watch has been the Curacao team. The biggest thing, they come back from being down to their final out and hit a 2-run home run against Latin America, and then hold off Latin America in the bottom of the 6th to win that one 2-1. So lots of games going on. Like you said, though, Seattle plays tomorrow. Still no time set with that one. I do know they played Southwest, and then Asia Pacific just crushed all over Japan yesterday. So Japan will take on Mexico tomorrow.
It's Chinese Taipei, right?
Yes.
That is the Asian Pacific team.
Yes.
I watched them play Canada over the weekend, and I just felt bad for Canada. You want to talk about the most overmatched game? Chinese Taipei just crushed them. I think it was a perfect game. There's a pitcher for Chinese Taipei that obviously the kids are pitching closer to the plate, so they do an equivalent of how fast it's getting to the plate and change it to what the speed would be for a Major League Baseball pitcher to get to the plate in that same time. He's throwing 107 in that equivalency. Like, the kids have no chance. Like, we're getting to the point where we have to start thinking about moving the mound back. Like, it's impossible to do because you can't do it in normal little league because 98% of the players are not throwing the equivalent of 107, and the distance from the mound to the plate is perfect. But when you get to this World Series and you're just playing just ridiculous athletes, you almost need to move it back. I know it's impossible because that really messes with the way the pitchers feel out there with now the plate being farther back. It's like saying, all right, you've made it to the NCAA tournament. Now the 3-point line is 3 feet back. Or the free throw line. It's impossible to do. But man, those kids, I feel so bad for them because you stand there and put the bat out and you hope.
So the conversion you talk about it, 107 now. In the gun, it is 82 miles an hour. 82 mile an hour fastball that comes out. It's just crazy. Just crazy. And then you got guys throwing 12 strikeouts in a 6-inning game. I mean,
there's a lot of strikeouts in the Little League World Series. That's for sure. FIFA Women's World Cup came to an end. I don't think either of us got this right, did we? Or did you? I think it was Harry maybe that said England was going to win. Yep. I wanted Australia, the home team, to win. They didn't even make it there. They lost in the semifinals. But Spain takes out England 1-0. Olga Carmona scores the lone goal in the 29th minute. And I believe Eric will know this for sure. I believe it was Olga that then found out right after the game that her dad passed away. They kept that news from her while she played and basically told her once she got off the pitch. So you go from this great energy of winning the World Cup and then finding out your dad passed. And I thought she did it or she handled it gracefully. I can't imagine what she was going through. Just a tough turn as far as emotions go. But congratulations to Spain for winning the Women's World Cup as USA got rid of their coach. He stepped down, but he got fired.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about with the controversy. I don't follow soccer controversy because there's too much soccer to get to. But I do know one sport we need to talk about. That is Aussie rules football. And now I have to monitor what Eric types from here on out, as Eric was a really nice guy and made sure that our buddy Harry Broadhurst rooted for a team that's going to win the wooden spoon. Because his team, who was trying to make the finals, and they still slightly have a chance, gave West Coast their second victory of the year. And they were getting blown out early. Eric sent me a message losing his mind at one point, and I was watching a different game. I wasn't watching Aussie rules at that time. And I asked him what it was, because Tampa Bay, I think, was in a tie game in baseball. So I was really confused. And then I realized he's talking about Aussie rules. We're getting that late enough at night where that was coming up. And sure enough, West Coast was taking it to the Bulldogs. Absolutely brutal.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch any of the game, but When I saw the scores, I'm just thinking, oh, what happened? So quick highlights watching. It was an interesting game between West Coast and Western.
Yeah. Now Eric is sounding like me with the New York Yankees right now. My Hawthorne Hawks have been battling tough the last couple of weeks against really good teams. The first half, they were hanging in there with Melbourne, just fell short. They lose 87-60. But the big game we got to talk about, your Geelong Cats eliminated from finals contention as they lose to St. Kilda 88-55. Welcome to the offseason, sir. How does it feel?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing of a team that just could not pull out, a streak of any games. It was a loss here, win, loss, win, back and forth. Some key injuries. Hawk, your buddy Tom Hawkins, hurt a little bit, but yeah. Here's the thing: the Cats were beat up all year, and the big thing, defending champions go down. I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed in this, following this sport for the last 2.5 years, is anything can happen on any day with these ball clubs, and seeing Western lose here, uh, and watching again a Collingwood team that plays well against us and then lose to Brisbane and lost to Port Island. It's just
Lost
crazy
to
to happen.
Hawthorne.
Lost to Hawthorne.
Yeah.
But
so
we can still play. We can play spoiler, so a lot can happen.
Let's get to it. I had to bring up the Aussie Rules site to get our time conversion, because the site I saw that had all the scenarios has all the Australian times. But the final week starts off with that Collingwood team, which has a chance to lock up the top seed going into the finals. But they have to beat Essendon, who is not mathematically eliminated, but they're eliminated. So if they win by more than 100 points and Geelong beats Western, and then GWS loses by 100 points, they can get in. It's not happening, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And then, what is it? 2:25 a.m. Saturday morning is the big game between Western and Geelong. Western has to win to have a chance, as we'll go ahead and bring up the ladder. As you can see, they absolutely have to win just to have a sniff, as they are 4 points out. You get 4 points for a win. So that happens Saturday morning for us. And then is the very last game of the year. I don't know if there's flex scheduling in Aussie Rules. I never pay attention to that. But the very last game, Carlton, who is trying to lock up the 5th seed, which would give them a home game in the elimination round, against GWS, who, if Western loses, their game doesn't matter because they're in, though they can try to move up a little bit, I guess. But if Western wins, they have to win to get in. So that's going to be a fantastic game, bright and early, 1 a.m. on Sunday morning. Is your team going to play spoiler? That's the question.
That's the big thing.
What is your prediction? Interesting. What's your prediction?
I would love to play spoiler and watch this happen, but I'm going to say it. I mean, Geelong just was so inconsistent with their play all year due to injury that, you can't really bet on them this year. We knew that this week's schedule against St. Kilda was going to be tough, but it just was not our season.
Yeah. And again, as you look at that ladder, Sydney was so far out of it, like a month and a half, 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. I want to say they were 13th or 14th. They've been on a great run. St. Kilda's been on a great run. Carlton's been on a great run. Again, we'll talk about it next week when we get actually to the finals. But Aussie Rules football has the best playoff format in all of sports, to me. I absolutely love what they do. But this year's going to be really interesting because there are some teams in that bottom 4 that'll all play each other and eliminate half of each other that I think are playing better than a lot of those teams at the top. Mm-hmm. This could be a year where a 5th to 8th seeded team can go all the way and make the crazy run, and we'll see how things go. Again, finals, or the regular season ends this week, and then we will break all that stuff down next week. What's going on in the world of golf.
Well, we're down to one tournament left after this past weekend at the BMW Classic, but let's talk about the main guy here, and let's talk about Viktor Hovland. What Hovland did, crazy what this man does. Sets the course record on Sunday, shoots 61. He shoots 7 under on the back 9. Crazy to do. Ends up shooting 17 under, but that's also taking and making birdie on 18 to take the lead over the number 1 FedEx ranked player in the world, and that's Scotty Scheffler. John Rahm's kind of fell off a little bit, but Hovland just could. You watch the highlights of Hovland, his approach shots on just about every shot on the back 9 were just phenomenal. Where he was placed, he just was in a groove mindset, and with that win, that does move him up into second place in the FedEx standings, just 194 points behind Scotty Scheffler, who leads. John Rahm gets bumped down to 4th place. Rory McIlroy still in third place, and Lucas Glover in 5th. So I think myself, it boils down to basically a 2-man race in this that's going to win the cup. You know, Rory's got an outside chance. He's got to win the tournament. He's got to have a lot of help. But I think it boils down to Scotty Scheffler and Viktor Hovland coming away with the win. And that's including like the hot Lucas Glover that has been playing so well, Max Homa. And he's sitting 6th. I want to say he is sitting, I've got it right here. He's right now in 6th place, I think, in the FedEx points. So, I mean, but he's far enough out.
Is the final just winner take all now? Aren't they down to the final 30?
They are down to the final 30.
Is it just winner take all and the points don't matter now, or?
Well, no, the points still matter. Points still matter.
Okay. Again, I like watching golf, but I hate that they have a playoff. I just do. I can't stand it. Just play your tournaments and win your majors and move on. All right. NASCAR had a wild event at the Glen. Race was kind of boring. I hate to say I like this track, but I think that just a new version of these cars, it's so tough to pass in tight spaces. So road courses are really getting hurt by them. Short tracks are really getting hurt. As for whatever reason, like dirty air for years was a big thing in the 1.5-mile tracks, the Texases, the Californias. Liv does not have a playoff. That is a bonus point for them. They also have no soul and no morals. But that's neither here nor there. But for whatever reason, dirty air has become a thing in short tracks and road courses, and it's so tough to pass, which makes track position so important. But they changed the road course rules this year, where it used to be at the end of every stage, like every other race, they'd have cautions. Well, they don't do that in road courses anymore because they want the strategy became too simple. It was, well, if you want playoff points or the 10 extra points, or the top 10 will get points at the end of each stage, you stay out. If you're not worried about those points, you're not in the top 10, you pit, and then you get the track position at the start of the next stage, because then everyone that stayed out will pit during the caution, and it just kind of messed with everything. So they tried something different. That really screwed things up as far as with, again, track position and how it really affects these cars. Chase Elliott absolutely had to win this race because Daytona is the final race, and that is a complete crapshoot. So what does he do? He runs out of gas. Late in the race, there's like 30 laps to go. His pit crew is saying, hey, flip the switch. You have 3 laps left. So basically, if you're not a NASCAR fan, you have a reserve tank. So when you start to feel sputtering, they tell you to flip the switch. You go to your reserve, and they know how much is in there. They forgot that a road course is very long. So 1 lap around Watkins Glen is much longer than 1 lap at Richmond. And they said, you have 3 laps. Well, he made it a lap. Maybe. Runs out of gas, basically takes himself out of contention. No, he really needed a lot of luck later on. He was sitting like 7th or 8th. Anyways, William Byron gets the win. That's his 5th win of the year, most of any driver this year. Denny Hamlin 2nd, Christopher Bell 3rd. But it basically comes down to this. Because we did not have a new winner at the Glen, that means Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski, congratulations, you're locked in. They have such a huge gap. So it comes down to this: who's going to make the top 16? And there's different, like Aussie rules football. While we focus on the cut line, there's some maneuvering in the playoffs that will give you extra playoff points depending on where you finish standing wise and all that stuff. But basically, the thing you focused on for Daytona, Bubba Wallace is in that last spot. If there's no new winner at Daytona, he has a 32-point lead over Ty Gibbs and a 43-point lead over Daniel Suarez. That means stage 1 and stage 2 will be very, very important because there's up to 20 points on the line there. And then obviously you got to survive the big one, and you got to survive whatever's going to happen on the final lap or two of Daytona. It's a complete crapshoot and a complete luck box. However, if we have a first-time winner on the season, and none of that matters, and all three of those guys are eliminated unless they're the winner. So that's what you look for. And with Daytona, it doesn't matter who's leading until the very last lap, until the very last corner, which makes a very interesting watch. It's on Saturday night, so that will be a lot of fun. Also, we don't talk about AEW on this show because, well, for one, I can't watch it for free on the network on Peacock, but I just don't like the product as much. But they do have their Wembley show this weekend. Do you have any interest on All Elite Wrestling in front of 80,000 people at Wembley this weekend?
I have not even looked at a match at AEW in a while, in years, so it'd be interesting to see. But I think I'm going to probably watch a little bit more NASCAR than anything. It was fun to kind of watch the highlights of them running the road course, and I like the road course a little bit more. But I think I'm going to probably steer towards NASCAR. And then on Sunday, I think I'm going to really watch what Victor Hovland and Scotty Scheffler do.
Yeah, forget the timing on Sunday for when it is, because, again, it's over in England. Real quick, I'll run through the card because we did that for SummerSlam. Just give me a prediction, even though you don't even know half of these rosters. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
Okay.
On the pre-show for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship. Again, this is All Elite Wrestling, but All Elite Wrestling does own Ring of Honor. But for the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Tag Team Championship, it's Aussie Open, the champions, versus MJF and Adam Cole.
Adam Cole.
Well, and MJF as a tag team.
Yeah.
That's on your pre-show. For the real World Championship, your champion CM Punk versus Samoa Joe.
Wow, I like both of those names. I'm going to say CM Punk.
In a tag team coffin match.
They still do those?
I've never seen a tag team one ever. But Swerve Strickland and AR Fox versus Darby Allin, who's from Washington, and Sting. Yes, Sting still wrestles.
He's like 50 some odd years old, isn't he?
Yeah.
I got to go the other way.
Jarrett
as much as I
also wrestles.
I'm a huge Sting fan, even from his time with WCW. But I'm going to go with the other team. Just I think the age thing might be too much.
How about Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay? We got 2 minutes.
Ospreay.
But yeah, same
Ospreay.
thing. It doesn't matter. It's AEW. Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and Kota Ibushi versus Konosuke. I have to be careful here because Jim Cornette says something different. Takashita, I believe is how you actually say it. Jim Cornette says it completely different. It's very not family friendly. Switchblade, Jay White, and Juice Robinson.
You got to go with a name like Juice Robinson.
There you go. In a Stadium Stampede match, John Moxley. Yeah, it's a wild hardcore match that was really cool during the pandemic. They went to Jacksonville Stadium and pre-taped a match of just goofiness. I'll have to send it to you. It was, if you like goofy wrestling, it's funny, but now that you have a crowd, it's not as great. But Stadium Stampede, John Moxley Claudio Castagnoli, who was Cesaro in WWE, and Wheeler Yuta plus 3 Roughnecks, is what this says, versus Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, the Best Friends, and the Lucha Brothers.
I like you said Cesaro. I liked Cesaro when he was there. I'm gonna go that way.
I don't know if this match is still happening due to legal reasons, but the AEW World Tag Team Championship is on the line between FTR, the champions, who were the Revival in WWE, and the Young Bucks.
I'm gonna go to the Young Bucks.
I hope not. I hate them. AEW Women's World Championship. Hikaru Shida, who's the champion, versus Toni Storm, Saraya, who is Paige in the WWE, and Dr. Britt Baker.
Dr. Baker.
And then finally, in your main event for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, MJF, the champion, will take on Adam Cole.
I'm going to go Cole. I think Cole takes the belt.
There you go. So you have him winning the Tag Team Championship and the World Championship.
Yeah.
On the same night.
There
you go.
Yep.
Lock it in.
Expert
AEW fan over here, Robert Hagen, has it all locked up. Next week, we may be back in studio. Hagen, I'll let you know early on. I've got to go see if my key even works or if any of these microphones still work. The website for the radio station is in beta right now. We have access to it to be able to check out, but it is not fully launched yet. They want to get some bugs tested out first. So if you want to just hear the audio version of it, that will be available on a website coming soon. But if things are still not set up, and they usually take away your access in the summer and have to give it back to you. If that has not been worked through yet, we will be right back here in our own homes next week. Again, Hagen, I'll give you plenty of warning before any of that. But either way, next week, another fun show. We'll do the AFC and NFC West division previews. We will see how Robert Hagen's big AEW all-in predictions land. Obviously, the first week of Idaho football will be in the books. We'll talk all about that and so much more. But that is next week. Until then, this was the 145th episode of the R&R Sports Report. For Robert Hagen and Denise, congratulations, you guys, for 25 years. For Robert Hagen, I'm Randy Isbell. And until Tuesday,